everyone to the UW-Eau Faculty Academic Staff Forum. My name is Erica Benson. I'm the Director of the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs. And this talk today is one of our collaborations with the College of Business. And so in their typical fashion, they have brought lots of folks here for the talk. So we're happy to have a great audience in the room and also a great audience online. So welcome to our online viewers as well. I'm delighted to introduce today's speaker. Dr. Emrah Ekici is an assistant professor in the Accounting and Finance Department here at UW-Eau. The title of his talk, which you can see behind me, is The Relevance of Executive Equity Compensation Design in Loan Pricing Decisions, Evidence from Private Loans. Before I turn things over to Dr. Ekici, I'll note that we will have some time for questions after the talk. And for our remote viewers, I just want to remind you that you can use the chat or the Q&A function. It's either at the top or the bottom of the screen, depending on your device. And our graduate assistant, Matt, will read those questions aloud for us. And I've asked Dr. Ekici also to please repeat any questions from the audience here for the benefit of our remote viewers. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Ekici.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming to my presentation. This is a collaboration with my co-author, Marina Ruzava. We have several publications and several other working papers together. Actually, we have overlap from PhD, so it's kind of the easy way to continue. This topic is about the equity compensation plan, which is, as you know, it's the really hot topic for everybody, every market participant, especially recently. Elon Musk Tesla pay package was voided by the judge. The total package amount was $56 billion. And there's a bump on the equity compensations or executive pay compensations recently, like another news from important news, the $1.61 million of awards just bumped to the $1.3 billion. So that gets the attention from the public, shareholders, the government, the market participants, the other corporations. So what we are trying to do is we pay more attention to stock options and the stock awards and trying to identify what is the effect on management decision process, because these compensation components have a huge impact on their decision-making process. Therefore, that decision-making will affect every market participants as well, like the shareholders, the government, tax payments, everything will be part of this. So I would like to quickly introduce you the executive pay compensation plans. Basically, we have two main components, cash and the equity. Cash is bonus and the salaries. Nobody really pays attention to those recently because those are really minimum amounts. And the second portion is the equity, which is stock options plus the stock awards. Based on the literature, we know that they have the distinctive differences between each other. And the biggest difference is stock options, they have convex, right? I mean, because I always get confused, convex and concave, right? Convex payout function, and when we look at, so basically convex means they have the upside and the downside risk. So they have the upside gain potential more than the stock options, and they have the downside risk because of the convex shape. On the other hand, stock awards, they have their payout function is linear. So whenever the stock price is higher than the zero, which means you are in the money, you make money out of it. But when it comes to the stock options, in order to be in the money, stock prices should go up after the grant date. So if the stock prices are going up, you are in the money, you make more money. If the stock prices are going down, which means you cannot be in the money, therefore you are losing money. So therefore, we believe that the distinctive difference between stock options and the stock awards, the payout functions, can have an impact on the management decision-making process. And there are extensive literature about executive compensation and the risk-taking activities. So most of the papers are focusing on the upside gain potential. And they show that with the upside gain potential, management are investing in the risky projects. And therefore, they examine how the management reactions, decision-making process is changing based on the upside gain potential. And including our paper 2022, we are mostly interested in the downside risk potential because they have higher downside risk than the Stogie Awards. And Cutman, Campbell, 2016, 2019, our paper 2022, we mostly focusing on the downside risk of the options relative to Stogie Awards. What we did, we check whether the management is changing their voluntary disclosure process based on their proportion of their stock options relative to stock awards. And we find that the firms with higher stock options, they are more interested in, or they have higher incentives to provide voluntary disclosures, trying to maybe I shouldn't say the manipulate, I need to be careful, right? Especially we are recording this. Manipulative or just trying to be informative way, they are trying to influence the stockholders because they know that the downside risk is the important concept for them. And if we look at another stream of the literature, executive compensation and the borrowing cost, it's not a new idea that we have been examining, but I will show you what's our biggest contribution to the literature. So Ekici 2012, they look at the loan spreads and the compensation plans, and they couldn't find any results. So they find that there's no relationship between the executive compensation pay plans and the loan spreads. We don't have any impact over there. And then Sean trying to expand this, he used the stock price delta and the Vega. So stock price effectiveness or the volatility of the stock prices perspective coming from the executive compensation plans. He found that there's a positive association between the delta and the loan spread, but there's no relationship between the volatility and the loan spread, which is shocking. So still the literature is trying to identify why there's no impact on the volatility and the loan spread perspective coming from the executive compensation. And the Balsam trying to expand Sean's paper, they find that the Vega is important, but when we have the covenant violations, so it's a small sample, restricted sample case, they find that no, actually, the stock price Vega plays a critical role when we have the covenant violations, but except that they couldn't find similar results as well. And finally, BZAC, it's kind of the motivation paper for us. They look at the options and the stock and whether there is an impact from equity compensation components separately on loan spreads. And they find that the options and the loan spreads are positively correlated. But the difference is they use the binary variable, so whether firm has options or not in their executive compensation, not the level of the compensation, not the dollar amounts, just by itself, whether the compensation includes the options or just the stock awards. So to give you the movement of the data, recently after the 2007-8 financial crisis, you can see that the total compensation packages are growing significantly. But interesting part is this growing is coming from the green side, which is the stock awards. And mostly the salaries and the bonuses are constant and options are volatile. So they are changing over time, but still the main growth is coming from the stock awards. So many companies are just getting the stock awards instead of the stock options. So this is the second important key factor because many people believe that the options becomes less informative and less important for the executive compensation plans recently because their dollar amounts relative to the stock awards is going down. So the management is just focusing on the stock awards in total. But we believe that still it shouldn't be the case because of their different payout functions. Options should be the critical factor. And if we go back to the news, Elon Musk, he got the 2020 or 21, he had the options, 1.7 million shares. And at that time, at the grant date, the price was $350, which is way lower than the half of the price, the current market value. Combining all this and what the literature has done, we are looking exit compensation plans, whether they have an impact on the cost of borrowing, and we are just mainly focusing on the pricing terms, which is the loan spread. In addition to that, we'll look at the loan size and the loan maturities as well, non-price terms as well, trying to make sure that it's not just affecting the one component of the cost of borrowing, the contract of the debts, but we are also looking at the other components as well. And the literature has been using the compensation level, compensation mix, delta and vega. These are the main variables has been used in the literature. And the loan spread is the main dependent variable for everyone and following up the same control variables. Our contribution is we are interested in option versus the stock in total. What is the design of the compensation and how it affects the market participants? In this case, it is the lenders. So we are trying to identify the proportion of the stock options relative to stock awards, if it's changing, whether it's going to affect the management decision-making process. Therefore, this information is going to be informative, or this information is priced by the outsiders. So that's kind of our biggest contribution here, because we are trying to use both of these equity compensation components together, not separately, because separately we have seen in the literature, options by itself, they affect the lenders. Stock awards by itself, they affect the lenders. Total equity compensation, it affects the lenders. But options proportionally, option versus the stock awards, well, what is the impact of that hasn't been tested yet. So that's the biggest contribution. So in this study, we examined whether the relative proportions of options and the stock awards will affect the loan spreads. There's any impact on that. And we propose that the different attributes of option and stock awards should affect the lender's decision. But the question is this going to be the positive or the negative? The case is, so we have the competitive hypothesis right now, because of the upside gain potential, managers have higher incentives to invest in more risky projects. Because if the stock prices are going up with the risky projects, they can make more money and they can. But the problem is this is not aligned with the lender's perception. But if you look at from the downside risk, still options have higher downside risk. Therefore, the management becomes more risk-averse and more concerned about their risk investment decisions. And that is aligned with the lender's perception. So if the lenders are pricing the upside potential gain, therefore we should have seen that the lower loan spreads, because the stock prices are going up, they are taking the risky projects. But if we are talking about the downside risk perception, therefore it should be the opposite. So we are trying to identify which way they are pricing. The first question is whether they are pricing this different proportion of options and the stock awards. The second question is which way, positive or negative. So our main findings, we find that the firms with the higher options relative to stock awards, they have higher loan spreads. And we tested this for the top 5 management compensation plans. And we did the same thing for CEO and CFO separately. So we are trying to identify the top management team has a different compensation packages versus the CEO or CFO. Is there any distinct differences or any differentiation between the CEO and CFO pay packages? And we find that no, they are very consistent and very similar to each other. And then we at several controls, we check the endogeneity concerns, because we are unfortunately noticeable endogeneity concerns out there. And we tested for this. Still, our results are consistent based on our findings. And in addition to that, we look at the non-price components of the loans, private loans, and we check the loan size and the maturity, whether there is any impact on our variable on our non-price terms, and we find that the loan size is going down as expected because it is very similar to loan spread, but we couldn't find any results with the maturity. It's kind of the downside for our findings, but it's consistent with the literature because it's really hard to find what factors are affecting the maturity. Because overall, if you think about it, these debt contracts are coming as a package. So loan size, loan spread, and the maturity are connected to each other. So maybe because of that, or maybe we need to expand, or maybe your suggestions, we can find significant results with those, because still it's ongoing paper. So the main contributions are, this is the first paper looking at the proportion of options relative to stock and the impact of these on loan spreads, and using two components together and how it affects the design of the compensation, the impact of the design of the compensation on the loan spreads. And our findings shows that still with the design of the compensation, changes will affect the management risk-taking incentives. Therefore, it will affect the market participants, in this case, the lenders. And we also show that the insight into how the different components of equity compensation influence the managerial behavior. So right now, the trend is options are going down, stock awards or restricted stocks are going up, but still that the changes in that compensation design will affect the management decision-making process as well. And I think it's an important finding too. So our data is coming from 4 different data resources. We get the equity compensation from Execicom, which means these are S&P 1500 firms mainly. So those are the top firms. So recently we have additional papers. We are trying to expand this study. We're trying to investigate the small firms as well, which is the Equilar data set we have been using. But these are the top S&P 1500 firms. Okay, just keeping that in mind. We get the loan spreads from deal scan, and for the other control variables, we use the Compistat and the CRISP. Our sample period is 2007, 2017. We start from 2007 because of financial accounting standards, FAS 123R. In 2005 and 2006, we changed the disclosure policy and the regulations on our executive compensation plans. So now the companies are required to disclose their compensation packages at the grant date. What is the dollar amounts of those? So before 2006 and after 2006, we don't have the same data anymore. So why we stopped 2017? Data limitations. We can say that there are a couple of reasons. I mean, theoretical or more academical reason is 2018, we have the Tax Act job cuts regulation, which is affecting the tax regulations on the equity compensation plans, which also affect the compensation design. And we believe that we should stop there, and because another regulation shouldn't drive our results. Other, technical issues are deal scan link stops at 2017 to the Compistat. So that is I don't know which way you want to take it, but we have 2 main reasons why we stopped the 2017, because most of the time we get the same comments from our reviewers, why you guys are stopping at 2017, and we are trying to be, polite and academically, okay, these are the reasons, instead of saying that, okay, we don't know how to merge this data anymore without the link. Because also deal scan is changing their, as far as I know, they changed their data set, and that is a dramatical problem for us to expand this study after 2017. So in total, we have 6,511 loan, a number of facility year observations. So which means some firms, they have several loan spreads and several additional in the same year or several other years. So this is how we create the sample selection process. We start with the Compistat, and after deleting all the other observations because of the data limitations, we end up with this 6,500 observations in total. So that is the sample distribution yearly. So you can see that the 2007-2008 financial crisis, we have less loans, but after that, loans are going up significantly. And this is the FAMA France 17 industry classification. So we have 15 because we dropped the financial firms and the utility firms. It's extremely consistent with the accounting literature because unfortunately we are not able to explain financial and utility firms because they have the different structures than the other industries. So it's extremely well distributed over the industries as well. So I can easily say that none of these industries are driving our results. So our measure, we have been using this. So we call it risk effect. Basically, it is stock divided by stock plus options, which means if the options are increasing, our measure is going down, it's decreasing. But to make it consistent, we use the we multiply this -1 to make the results more readable for the reviewers and the readers. So what we are trying to find is if the options are going up, for the firms with higher options, we would like to see the positive sign when it comes to the empirical results. Okay. So that is the results more readable. It is the confusion from the reader's perspective. This is why we are multiplying this -1. So this is our empirical model. We regress the loan spreads on risk effect, and we add the addition controls and the fixed effects. So our main variable is alpha 1. Basically, we regress time t+1 because today's compensation should affect the next year's or the following loan spreads. So because of the timing reasons, we are using regressing time t on time t-1. So that's the other case. So if the alpha is greater than 0, which means we are accepting the hypothesis H1B, or if the alpha is less than 0, it's negative, which is supporting the hypothesis H1A. So we are trying to identify the competitive hypothesis, which one is the main results for us. So that is the descriptive statistics, what we get, and that is the correlations table. As you can see that I have the laser, right? So risk effect, team, CEO, and CFO, all of them are positively correlated with the loan spreads, as we expect. I mean, pretty much we believe that because of the different payout functions, more options should increase the loan spreads. So before starting our results, we want to make sure that we are consistent with the literature. So we are just follow up the Biziak's paper, and we use the binary variable of the options, whether existence of options affect the loan spreads. And we find that if the firms have stock options in their executive compensation plans, they have higher loan spreads. And it's same for the top management team, the compensation plans. It's same for the CEOs and the CFO compensation plans. So our results are consistent. And this is our main results. So in this case, we replace the binary variable, the options, the existence of the options. We replace it with our risk factor, risk effect measure. And we find that firms with more options have higher loan spreads. So if the options are going up, loan spread is going up. So basically, management is mostly focusing on the management has higher incentives to invest in the risky projects. Therefore, lenders are pricing the upside gain potential more than the downside risk. So we use the other control variables, the firm controls, performance controls, the other controls for the compensation plans as well. And for the endogeneity concern, because it's the biggest problem for us, the endogeneity concern, because there are so many other factors affecting the loan spreads, and it shouldn't be directly related to compensation plans by itself. So we use two different endogeneity tests. The first one is the two-stage riskier. Basically, we just use the instrumental variable. So in the stage 2, again, our predicted effect variable is positively correlated with our loan spread, and it's consistent over team, management, and the CFO. Second endogeneity test, we replace the same test. This time we use the changes, because when we use the changes model, we assume that many of uncontrollable variables are canceled out each other. We take the changes. So still, the changes in the risk effect is positively correlated with team, CEO, and the CFO. And our results are consistent. So our results are supporting the hypothesis H1B overall. And then we continue exploring more by providing the additional tests. So first of all, we did a couple of robustness tests to make sure that our results are consistent and nothing is not any factor is driven our results. So we add the delta and vega, because those are the main variables in the literature has been used by the other academics. And with delta and vega, still our results stay there. So still we get the same results. And I think it's important because many times people would like to see that, how about the delta and vega, because it's the well-known two measures in the executive compensation plans. And we want to make sure that we answer those questions as well. And the second part of this paper, instead of the pricing terms, we said non-price terms. How about the loan size and the loan maturity? Whether there is any impact on our risk effect or the proportion of stock options relative to stock awards. Is there any impact from here to non-price components of the debt contracts? And we used two of those, loan size and loan maturity. We are lucky we find the results for the loan size, and the results are negative, which means firms with more options, they are able to get less debt from lenders, because if the loan spread is going up, as expected, loan amount should go down as well. So basically, still the lenders price that the risk. So they believe that the management incentives are going towards the risky projects, and the lenders are just pricing that information to make sure that they want to make sure that they can get paid back. But unfortunately, when we look at the loan maturity perspective, it was not the 10th percentile or one tail result. We couldn't find anything. So our results are not significant overall. So unfortunately, we don't have any explanations for that. Why? It's just empirical work that what we are trying to examine. There might be any reasons why we couldn't find any results on the loan maturity. But to be safe, I can easily say that without pointing out the limitation of this paper, the literature hasn't shown anything about the loan maturity as well yet. So in terms of that, I think we are good to go. And finally, what we did, we are trying to expand this to look at the cross-sectionals, because bonus is one of the main performance measure from the cash components. And we just split our sample based on high bonus and the low bonus firms. And whether when management get paid high or low bonuses, whether our risk effect options versus stock awards play a key factor on loan spreads. And we find that when the management has high bonuses, we find the results, but when they have the low bonuses, they don't have the results. So still, it's important finding, because from the bonus perspective, when they get paid higher cash components, and our expectation, they are taking the higher risky projects because of those risky investments. And the lenders are using that hard information as a soft information as a hard information in their decision-making process as well. So overall, the trend is we don't know what this management is going to do. And they are the decision makers. We are trying to identify, okay, what is the way to identify their decision-making process, because always it is the insider information. And although lenders, we know that they have information advantage relative to other market participants, still they are using those compensation plans as a hard information for themselves. And we believe that that is a important finding in the literature, because we should expand the equity compensation plans, because still we have a lack of information how they design it and what are the consequences those plans as well. So still literature is growing two ways. The first part is what are the determinants of the equity compensation plans, how they define option versus equity versus cash, or stock options versus the stock awards. The second part of the literature is what are the consequences when they start changing their compensation structure. So to sum up, our initial findings, the preliminary findings shows that when the firms have greater proportion of options relative to stock awards, they have higher cost of debt, and they have lower loan size, and they don't have any impact on their maturities. We also provide insights into lenders' assessment of the differential risk properties of option and stock awards. And we still pointed out that they are paying attention to the stock options, although many people believe that because of the amounts of the options are going down, because of that trend, they believe that those are not really important. We find that we show that still the lenders are paying attention to those components as well. So future steps for this paper, thankfully we presented this paper to different conferences, 2023 Southwest Region and 2024 Management Accounting section. This paper also accepted to Journal of International Accounting Research this summer. And that's the advantage, my co-author or we just split and we just able to present this paper, keep going. And we also submit this paper to annual meeting. Also, this paper is under revision right now at the Journal of Management Accounting. Any questions?
You mentioned that the environment's changing from 2018 onwards. And so it seems that maybe do you think that's an opportunity then to look at the effect of those changes in this area? Given you've got this work,
Right.
previous area, now you've probably got 7 years of data, well, coming up to 7 years of data in the new environment.
Right. So basically you are right. I mean, the environment is changing after 2017. The problem is, again, we have two major events. One of them is 2018 regulation. The second problem is 2020 COVID. So we tested this as a robustness test after 2009, after the 2007 financial crisis, trying to make sure that our results are not driven by the financial crisis. So how COVID will affect, it's an empirical question. But we are trying to keep the sample, again, clean without those major events. But you are right. I mean, definitely, I think at some point we need to find the best way to expand it. Because now it's 2024, and the question is why we stopped 2017. Although I believe we have a good explanation for that, but still, empirical is not good enough.
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment about your table. So you were saying one table, your empirical result didn't detect any significant relationship between the maturity. No, I'm not questioning about
Right.
So the maturity and the proportion of the option and reverse. I think it quite makes sense, because the biggest decision to the lender is if they should issue the loan. But as considering the maturity, as long as they decide to issue the loan, and then it can be easily captured by the interest level. So I think that result makes sense.
No, thank you. I think your point is really valid. I mean, yeah, they are mostly, as you said, pricing or showing their interest on the loan pricing terms or the loan spreads by itself. But in finance literature, maybe we are just kind of influenced by the finance literature. they are looking as a package. So this is why sometimes we have a hard time. They want to see the as a package, loan spread, loan maturity, and loan size all together, and want to see the results. Otherwise, you are definitely right. And thanks for that. It's real supportive. Yeah. Yes, please.
So why did you use loan spread instead of something like performance or innovation, new discoveries, like things like that? Guess what was why did you choose loan spread instead of?
Oh, actually, this is just a one perspective because we look at the management side, we use the management voluntary disclosures. And another paper will look at the liquidity, whether the firm's liquidity is affected by that. And we are keep expanding and trying to look at from different market participant perspective. This time we said, okay, how about the lenders? Because there might be the main users of this information or should be able to use this information if they want to extract any, if those are informative from the market participants' perspective. So that's the only reason. So we are trying to keep changing the dependent variable and expanding this literature, trying to understand or provide some insights about the literature. So that's the only reason. So it's not on the paper. So we have a couple of published, couple of ongoing working papers. We are just trying to change, you get the data and you are trying to expand it.
You know that I have like 6 billion questions.
I know.
But I will focus on a couple.
Yes, please.
One is that I see that you have the Z-score over there as one of the variables that you are using to control, right?
Right, yeah.
You mentioned that this is a sample from the S&P 500?
Yes,
correct?
mostly.
Okay, so have you considered including actually, instead of the Z-score, which would be really misleading, the credit rating? And I'm saying that because you are talking about loans, yeah, and the spread, so the cost of debt. Have you considered that?
No, this is a perfect suggestion. Thank you.
Okay.
So we thought about the CDS as well, but
Yeah,
not every firm has the CDS in our sample.
No,
It was the downside.
But
But-
they're going to have most likely
Credit, right,
and even you can use proxies coming from the industry.
right.
So yes, that's one of the 200 questions that I have for you later on. It's going to be a couple of lunches for sure, yeah?
I can defend myself. Z-score is the finance literature, not accounting. So
Yeah, but you know,
you guys created those.
there's something that I teach day one in class is don't trust the Z-score.
I should
Because
think,
no one knows exactly how it's being done, right?
right.
And yeah, including that, instead of the rating, I would be making the observation as a reviewer. I would be actually replacing because I think it's more meaningful that Z-score is about the probability of defaulting.
Right.
You're not actually talking about that. You are
Right, yes,
Talking about the other half of it,
right.
that is the spread, yeah?
Mhm.
So that's one recommendation that I have for you. And let me choose another one. Several ones.
Keep it simple, please.
Yeah, because we have too many.
You don't want to kill the idea.
We have time to do that. We have 1 more minute. Okay, so no, I will stop there because we have just 1 more minute, but I have a lot of recommendations for you.
Oh, I really appreciate
Okay.
that. I mean, because it's a really working paper.
Especially about what you said in terms of nobody knows about the Vega. I'm pretty sure I can tell you why, yeah?
Oh, that will be perfect
Yeah.
because really Vega couldn't find any significant results with Vega is shocking.
It's because of the shapes that you talk about, the
Con-
convexity and
convex.
turbulentity. So I will be talking to you about that part. Okay?
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much for coming and attending my presentation.